Hello traders, Cory Mitchell here, TradeThatSwing.com. In this video, I'm going to go over Stockrover and how it can be used for swing trading. Stockrover is probably considered more of a fundamental analysis type platform, but I actually really like it for swing trading because of a few features that we're going to go over in this video. There's going to be a link below. If you decide to get Stockrover and you use the link, I'll just shoot me an email and I'll send you all like the scans that I have set up on Stockrover, the main ones I use. So we're going to go over one of them today, the swing trading list. Then there's also a few investment ones, the long-term holds, best dividend stocks, the best swing trading stocks watch list. So there's a few lists on the site, as you can see up here, the buy the dips. And those are a little bit longer term strategies. The best swing trading stocks list is high momentum stock names, trades lasting usually several days to a couple months. And yeah, I'll send you a document that has all those scans in it if you decide to go, help you get launched with Stockrover with some good scans. And yeah, so this is a really good platform, and I'm going to show you how I use it for swing trades today. We're going to go through some of the steps, some of the tools. And so you can see I have a list up here. It says there's 114 stocks on it. And this is just basically a general scan to find stocks that are stronger than the stock market. And why do I want stocks that are stronger than the stock market? Well, I'd prefer not to just buy something that's going to perform typically. I want something that is going to move strongly. I'm just going to get a chart set up over here so we can compare it. So if we look at the S&P, we can see it's been pretty strong. Let's look at the last 6 months. Change that to percent. So just the stock market alone is up 5% over the last 6 months. Over the last 3 months, up 10%, or just 9% in a bit. So I would want to be trading stocks that are stronger than that. This is kind of what a typical big cap stock will be producing. If we want to find more explosive stocks, then yeah, I'm going to look for things that are stronger than that. So that's kind of one of the first steps. I'll also look at how are we doing over the last year. Where are we relative to a 52-week high? Over the last year, 52 weeks, we are pretty much right at the high. So most stocks that I would be looking at, I would also want them near a high. If a stock had a high way back here and now it's trading way down here, why is that? If most stocks are at their highs doing really well, why is a stock way down here? Now, there maybe you're a undervalued trader or something like that. You look for deals. I'm not really that type of trader. I'd rather trade things that are high momentum, and if I'm going to be doing that, I want to find things that are higher momentum than the market. So I'm going to be looking for stocks that are up near their highs. Now, if the S&P was, down here, right, like it was back then we're kind of doing the same thing. This would have been, several percent off quite a few percent off its high. The high was here, and if we're looking at it was 15% off its highs. So I'd be looking for stocks that are pushing up and maybe closing in on recent highs while the market's down here. Again, always looking for something that's stronger. So that kind of sets the stage for why I scan the way I do. So if we go into here and we go modify, you can see what the criteria are. Now these are going to change based on what this is doing. As we said, over the last 3 months, the S&P 500 is up 9%, but at various times it's going to be up 20%, 30%, 2%. So I'm going to always change this to reflect what the market is doing or what kind of stocks I want to be picked based on what the market's doing. I always want to be looking for stocks that are strong. So NYSE, NASDAQ, that's the universe for this. I also have a Canadian exchange one. And price versus 52-week high. This is one of the major reasons I use Stockrover, is because I can fine tune this to whatever I want. The 52-week high, that if it's at the 52-week high, it'd be at 100%, meaning it's 100% at the 52-week high. If it's 10% below that, then you'd have a reading of 90 because it's 90% of the way to its 52-week high. If the high was at 100 and the stock's trading at 50 now, it'd have a reading of 50 because the stock's only at 50% of its whatever that 52-week high was, which is 100%. So I have it set at 102. This is basically if the price just made a new high, it's going to be included in the list. And I have it set to 80. Now we already discussed the S&P is right at its high. But since we're looking at stocks that tend to be strong, they're going to have some movement, right? They could move 5-10% a day. So if maybe it only had like a tiny little pullback in the big scheme of the chart, but that could actually be 10-15% off its high, just because it had maybe, a down day or something, or a couple down days. So I'll usually keep it around 80 to 100 when the market's at its high, and as we are right now. Price versus 52-week low, this just makes sure I'm not bottom fishing. The price has to be at least 50% off its 52-week low. So it's had a nice run up already. This basically means that off its low point of the year, it's up at least 50% from there. 3-month average volume set at 500,000. So, some volume there. You could definitely set it higher or lower if you wanted. Price versus 200-day moving average greater than 100. Whatever the 200-day moving average is will be 100 on Stockrover. So if you set this at 90, it's basically going to look for stocks that are at least 90% of that 200-day moving average. So it allows stocks that are slightly below. If you put this at 110, it'll only look for stocks that are 10% or above the 200-day moving average. So this is basically just saying look for stocks that are at or above their 200-day moving average. Same for the 50-day moving average, at or above. 3-month or 6-month return. We already looked at that. The S&P was up, I believe, about 5%. I set this at 30. So I'm looking at stocks that are much stronger than the index. And I'll calibrate this depending on how many stocks. As you can see, 112 stocks show up on the scanner. That's a decent amount. If I was getting 0 or only 5 or 6, then maybe I'd want to refine that scan and reduce the criteria a little bit. If I'm getting 400 stocks, which I believe I was when I had this at just slightly above the S&P. If you have this at 10%, well, let's run it. Here's how you do it. You just click on it, change it. So now we have 126. The 3-month return is pretty high too. Let's say that we know that the S&P return is 9%. So if we put that just above, now we're at 250 stocks. I don't necessarily want to look through that many stocks. You kind of want to calibrate how many stocks are you willing to look through. I'll usually try to get it below 150. So yeah, let's put that back to, let's say 30. And this one, I can do 30 on it as well too. Let's see where that puts us. So 142, that's not too bad. We could increase these a little bit more, of course, to reduce it a little bit more, or if you wanted to look through more stocks. Remember, there is some wiggle room, right? Because all these stocks are really strong compared to the S&P. So even if you reduce these slightly, you'd still be looking at stocks that are strong. Last close above 5, that's up to you. I usually am not going to trade the little stocks unless it's on the Canadian exchange, because Canada just has a lot more little stocks. If we narrow the price too much on Canadian stocks, we're not going to end up with any. But for US stocks, there's so many big high momentum companies that we can throw in that price criteria just to reduce it down a little bit, avoid some of those penny stocks. Not that there's anything wrong with them. It's up to you if you want to trade them. 6-month return versus industry. What this is going to do is if you have, let's say, 5 semiconductor stocks, and this is going to help weed out some of the stronger ones versus some of the weaker ones, because maybe all 5 or 10 semiconductor stocks might surpass these other criteria, but maybe only 1 or 2 get past this criteria. So it just kind of filters out and makes the stronger ones appear on the list. 6-month return versus industries. That's, let's say, or gold stocks. Which ones are performing better than most of the other ones? So if the industry average is, let's say, the industry is up 20% over the last 6 months, then we're only looking for the ones that are up 30%. So ones that are doing better than the industry average in terms of price performance. And then I don't have any fundamental criteria in here. You could certainly add it in. There are loads of criteria. So you can look at, 5-year growth estimates, how much companies are actually growing, profitability metrics. There's just an insane amount of things you can put in here to scan for stocks. And what it does is it narrows down the universe to what you really want to be trading. And while there's some other good scanners out there, this one I find basically gives me what I want. So we can save this. I'm going to up this a little bit just because there's so many strong stocks out there. So yeah, now we're down to 121 stocks. That's a manageable amount to flip through. We're going to click Run in Table. And what I like about, let's just go back one sec, because here's something you can do. You'll notice here, it's going to show you the stocks that meet all the criteria. You can see it gives it a score. I have 10 criteria here. All of these meet. Let's say you had a stock that you thought's really good and you're like, why doesn't Cory have it on his list? Well, you could punch it in there and see how many of the criteria it fits. So give it a second, it'll pop up there. So Google, maybe I haven't looked at Google's stock price, but maybe you're like, Google looked really good to me. Why isn't it on Cory's swing trade list? Well, it's because it didn't fit into this scan. If I was looking at this specific scan for swing trades, you can see it only hit 60%. You can hover over it to see which one. So it's kind of hard to see. On the right side, you can see the pass or fail. So exchange, yeah, it passed. It's on the NASDAQ. Is it between 80 and 100% of its 52-week high? Yes, it passed. It's right at its 52-week high, pretty much, 98% of it. Is it above 50% above its 52-week low? No, it's only 44.5% above its 52-week low, so that's a fail. Yes, it passes on volume. Yes, it passes on the moving averages. It's above those averages. 6-month return, it's kind of more in line with the stock market, what the S&P's done. It's up 9.9%. Hey, that's pretty good. But I'm looking for stocks that are really strong, really moving. So it fails on a 6-month return greater than 40%. It's only at 9.9. Last close, yes, it's $203 stock. It's above $5. Industry average, no, it's not beating the industry. It's 1.2% above its industry average, and we're looking for things that are up 10% or more. 3-month return greater than 30%, kind of close, 24%, really good, but it's not gonna make this list. So whenever you run a scan, and I'll do this too on my investment lists, because I have a lot of fundamental criteria in there, and I might wonder, hey, why didn't this stock make the cut? And then I can type in the ticker here. When you modify criteria, it'll give you the list, all the stocks that pass all these criteria, and then you can add in whatever you want, just to see how it compares to your list. Then, depending on what you're trying to do, maybe you alter the criteria to include those types of stocks if you want them included. So you can work backwards. It's like, I want a screener that's going to include this type of stock, and then you can build the screener around it by looking at what it would pass and what it wouldn't. Or you can do like what I've done, create a scanner where it's like, I want stocks that meet this. And if you're ever wondering why something doesn't meet those criteria, you can input it here. So again, Apple, kind of the same thing. Yeah, it's doing a little bit better. Or there's Apple. So most, again, not quite enough to be up 50% off its 52-week low. 6-month return down 5% instead of up 40%. So pretty big miss there. 6-month return versus industry, it's down versus its industry, or not performing as well as its industry. And 3-month return, yeah, pretty good, 9.5%, but not as good as 30% that we're looking for. So run in table, and I have this set up so you can change it to where you just see a table, where you just see a chart, where you just see what are called insights. We'll look at those in a second, or all. So the insights, if we have all, our insights panel is going to be over here. And this is going to give us some quick ratios, analyst estimates, recent news from a couple different sources, dividends. If there's a dividend history, then it would show it here over many, many years. Probably none of these pay dividends since they're all super strong stocks. Oh, Oracle might. There we go. So you can see the dividend history. You can see, wow, nice steady increases in dividends. Maybe that's something you look for an investment. We're talking about swing trades, but just for insights, we have all these other things. Monthly returns, this is basically kind of like seasonality. You can look at how it's performed on its own versus the S&P 500. Financial statements, you can see per year. You can also set it so that you only see the change, percentage change, so that you're looking like, well, yeah, they made X amount of dollars this year and X amount of dollars this last year and this year. You can look at it this way, or you can look at it as a percentage change, where you're seeing, yeah, how much things changed. History, you can see the price to earnings, sales, net income, over time. Technicals, moving averages, RSIs. Versus peers, this is an interesting one, so you can see where it kind of fits in terms of various metrics with other ones. It's like, okay, maybe this one popped up on the list, but you go through the peers and find maybe one's a little bit better. I don't usually do that for this list because I'm mostly looking at price action. Again, just showing you some of the tools that are in there, and you can change them up a little bit if you want. But that's the insights panel. I use it a little bit more for investing, not as much for swing trading, but certainly a tool you can look at using. You can change your views, so you can look at all sorts of different data for these stocks. Now, we might just look at returns, since this is swing trading, not too focused on fundamentals. It's like basically how have things performed. And I like having it a chart. So for a swing trade, I'll typically look at a 1-year chart. And what I'm looking for here is, we're at the right side of the chart right now, of course. So I'm looking for patterns that are potentially emerging at the moment. And so I like looking for contraction patterns, rounded tops, rounded bottoms. And if any of those are playing out, I'll maybe just jot it down so that I can look at it after. But I'm basically just hitting my down arrow and looking for things as a buyout, not of interest. Yeah, and are there any patterns that are forming? And yeah, and I'll just go through the list, jot down a few, and then I'll do my more thorough analysis on those, where I start looking at, okay, how big have the price runs been? What could my risk reward be on this trade? Can I find a good entry point and stop loss location? Is the price action too choppy? Is it moving nice and clean? And from those, I might write down 10 stocks that are kind of forming a pattern out of these 120. And then I'll, dig in. Maybe only one has a setup that's forming right now. I look at, do I like it? And if I do, then I put out my orders. And there might be a couple that are maybe a few days away. So what I'll do is I'll set up a chart on TradingView or something, or create a watch list in here. You can create watch lists, and I'll just monitor them to see if they start finalizing that pattern where I want to look for an entry. And this is how I find swing trades. Just going through and seeing, hey, does it have a setup I like? I have asked, I like to look for, especially some of these stocks move a lot. So you can see this is, the scale's even. So this is an arithmetic chart. I asked them to make candlestick logarithmic charts so that a move from 1 to 2 visually looks the same as a move from 5 to 10, because both those moves are 100%, whereas the move from, once the stock's up at 10, that move from 1 to 2 is going to look like it's only this big, and the move from 5 to 10 is going to look like it's this big. But percentage-wise, they should be, I like to see them visually the same, because 100% move is 100% move, whether it's $1 to $2 or $5 to $10. And especially if a stock's gone up like 100, 200% in a year, all of a sudden, everything at the top of the chart starts looking really big because it's moving, $20 at a time. And it can look really loose and gross. But if you scale it based on logarithmic, and now everything's kind of scaled according to percentages, that 20% move from 100 down to 80 doesn't look that big, which it isn't, because it's a 20% move. And if we have lots of these 100, 200% moves coming up, then that 20% move isn't very big, even though on a algorithmic chart, that $20 move would look really big. So for visual streamlining, and I like logarithmics. That's the only thing I've asked them to upgrade. But for the most part, the charts provide a pretty quick way for me to just see if something is setting up. So for example here, this wouldn't quite be ready for me yet, but I'd maybe write it down to check back in a week or so, because you can see it's dropping and it's kind of leveling off. So in order for it to have a rounded bottom, it would need to start moving up, so make a higher swing high, and then pull back, hold above these prior lows, and start moving up. So we'd have to have basically a move up into here, a pull back, and then I'd start looking for entries if the price started moving back up. But we're a little ways away, right? Because the price now it would have to make a higher swing high. So I could write it down, but it's maybe a week or so away. And if the price keeps drifting lower, then I would just cross it off my list, ignore it, because it didn't set up. What else can we look at? So let's say you're interested in this stock and you are a little bit more of a fundamental trader. Something I like is you can just right click on it and hit research report. And you're going to get a load of, let's see if I can, there we go. So we get a couple pages at once. You get this like big report with basically just everything you could possibly want to know about this stock. Its seasonality, its 5-year performance versus the S&P 500, analyst estimates, where they think the earnings are going to be, where the price could end up. I don't put too much weight on price targets, but earnings estimates and things like that do move markets, right? Because if earnings estimates are high and then the company misses them, then the stock's typically going to tank. And if earnings estimates are a bit too low and the price overshoots, so we don't know how the company is going to end up, actually, those estimates. But generally, if estimates are moving up and estimates are good, that's going to be favorable for the stock. And I do not hold swing trades through earnings. So it's basically, as long as there's positivity going up to those earnings and the price is moving up well, I'm out when the actual company when the earnings are actually released by the company, because I don't like being in for the big gaps. Yeah, sometimes they gap up, but sometimes you get the gap down. It's just not something I'm interested for swing trading. So I'm out. So you could look at these things for just, how is everything? A lot of traders I know prefer to be in a little swing trading in more stable stocks or a little more risk adverse. So you could look at how financially sound is the company. Is there, a lot of risk there in terms of, they could declare bankruptcy overnight, for example. Peer analysis, you can see how it compares to others in its industry. Is it really hot? Is it really cold? How is it valued? What is its growth like compared to some of the other ones on the exchange? Quick summary, how their sales growth. You can see sales growth for Hood, really good over the last year compared to the industry and even the S&P 500. EPS growth, a little bit lower, right? That's next year. Estimated to grow at about 13%, industry also 13%, S&P around 14%. So, we can look at these things and decide, hey, do I want to trade? I don't necessarily use this for swing trading. I'm just showing you as a tool you could add in if you wanted to. For swing trading, I'm pretty much focused on the price charts. I'm trading momentum. I find a pattern I like. I put out an order. I have a stop loss. I have a target. And it's going to run or it's not. And I'm not too concerned about its fundamentals because I'm just in for that short burst of price momentum. But if I'm looking for longer term trades, I'm definitely going to start looking at things like this. What stocks are really good growth prospects? And I have scanners for those. So like I said, at the beginning, if you do decide to check out Stockrover, you can use the link below. Once you've signed up, then I can send you some of my longer term scans as well as the swing trading scans, but just a ton of information in here. And a pretty cool thing. And one thing you could do, like I said, I found I don't really need to focus on this too much. But if you did want to see if maybe there's catalysts behind some of those explosive trades that you end up in, or why did this trade work out and this one didn't? When you're taking a trade, you could print off this research report or save a copy so that when you do your trade review, you could look at, hey, what was going on in the stock around that time? There may have been some market factors. Maybe the market, the S&P, the NASDAQ, they were all just really strong. So you happen to be in something that was just, being lifted up and also happen to be a hot industry at the moment. But it could also be something like this. It had phenomenal fundamentals or something, and institutions were buying it up. So this could provide some insight into that you could do some review and dig into. Yeah, maybe there were some catalysts behind some of your trades that worked out really good. This very thorough overview of everything going on in the stock might give you some insight. And then again, it also may be overkill. So that'd be a little bit more fundamental. For the swing trading, I'm simply looking for these criteria and actually, yeah, kind of patterns like this. So this is a bit of a rounded bottom, right? Drops, moves up a little bit, moves to a new swing low, makes a new swing high. You have the pullback, which holds above these prior lows, and we're starting to move up. So this is kind of an area where it's like, okay, if we're interested in getting in, we could get in, but a stop loss would be not far below because I'm expecting this to go up. If it's in that rounded bottom and I want to analyze this bring it up on my trading view chart or something like that, zoom it in, measure all these waves, look at how choppy it is. Are earnings coming out in the next few days, anything like that, because those are going to affect my decision of whether I want to trade or not. But this would be one I'd write down, and I'd just write down hood, rounded bottom, take a closer look, and then I decide if I want to trade it or not. So that's the swing trading process using Stockrover. Once you have your scans set up, it is pretty easy. You just click on them and you can see what stocks make the list. So this is the Canadian one. The best swing trading stocks list is way down here. I do not use all of these. Some of these are just ones I created as a one-off or I tested things out. I probably use about 5-6 scans really regularly. And this is the best swing trading stocks list. It's just really high momentum stock names. And again, you can pull up different views. You could view them based on fundamentals or price performance, returns versus S&P 500. And of course, these are going to blow them away because I'm actually scanning for stocks that are doing much better than the S&P. You can see them over various time frames. So you can change these around, get any sort of view you want. I have a view which is a little bit more fundamental based, and this would be for longer term, but it's just showing basically everything I want to look at for longer term type trades, more investment style, not swing trading. And for swing trading, I'll typically just go to returns. And I'll usually sort by 3 or 6 month. And yeah, start wherever you want, bottom, top, and just go through the list, flipping through, see which ones have patterns that are forming. Little double pump pattern, that's a day trading pattern. I should add it into the swing trading course as well because it does apply, but I did find it definitely useful for day trading, but I am noticing it, more swing trading as well. So we have a move up, little pullback, stall out near the prior high, but then it also stalls out near that little pullback low. So little pullback here, move up to the high, stalls out, and then it stalls out near that prior low. So it's almost like a tiny little range. And then once it starts moving up off that low, so starts breaking candle highs, that's when we look to get in. And I'm mostly interested after a nice sharp move up. So it's kind of a more vertical sharp move followed by this little M type pattern, and we're trading once the price starts moving up off the bottom of the M. So I hope that helps you out. Stockrover, again, one of my favorite scanners. I use it all the time for swing trading and for longer term investment. Finding great companies to buy when maybe the stock market's down a little bit or when everyone's panicking. Stock market just dropped 20%, the major indices. I'm digging in here and looking at, okay, what are some phenomenal stocks that continually grow that I can jump in for the next year or two, so that'd be more longer term. And then always, what are the high momentum names for swing trading where I can jump in, grab 10, 20, 30, 40% in a relatively short amount of time. So if you got questions on it, there's so many features in here that I'd say I'm pretty good with Stockrover, but there's even a lot of tools that I haven't got to. But if you have questions, by all means, ask them below the video. You can sign up via the link below, and I'll send you some of my scans. And yeah, enjoy Stockrover and happy trading.